Hello and welcome to the Faces of Africa Pocket Edition, where we dissect and discuss the topics covered in our weekly documentary show, which takes you through the continent's history, cultures, and major issues through exploring great personalities. This week on Faces of Africa, we're talking about the Chinese New Year. Yay! My name is Fathiya Nur. I'm joined by
Ashley.
Hi, Ashley.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Ashley is our producer.
Yes.
From Faces of Africa.
I don't go on the podcast that often.
And why is that?
I'm shy. But today's topic is the Chinese New Year's. I feel obligated to, let's just talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, because China is home, right?
Yeah.
And of course, Chinese people, if I could call it that way, they are celebrating their New Year.
Yes, Chinese people around the world, whether they're expats in different countries or they live in China.
Right.
Chinese people in general are celebrating New Year in this week.
Why is it different?
It's different because we have a different way of calculating our days. The reason is we have a different way to count our days. I think it happens to different cultures around the world. I think in the Islamic culture, you also have your own calendar.
Yes, we do.
And in Ethiopia, they celebrate Christmas on a different day than other countries, right?
Yeah.
So it's just our ancient calendar, which we are still honoring today. And I think the influence has gone beyond China. Chinese people are very attached to our traditional culture,
Right.
Or we just like a good feast.
You love your culture.
Yeah.
As it should be.
Yeah.
But interestingly, I mean, with the Chinese New Year, it has specific names, if I could call it, zodiac signs. Like this particular year is the year of the snake.
Yes. And I know you're not a big fan of reptiles.
I don't like the way it moves and slithers.
And I think we at CGTN we try really hard to make the image of a snake more relatable.
Can you even be though?
I know. My mom, she doesn't like snakes or any kind of reptiles. So when I send her like cute pics of harmless and poisonless snakes, she still thinks, put that away, So it's not just for foreigners, rest assured.
Right.
But in traditional culture, we were talking about this a while ago. Some of our ancient gods, they are in the shape of snakes. They have, it's like a mermaid, but, instead of having a tail of a fish, you have a tail of a snake.
Right.
And that's very interesting. If you look at different cultures that are really apart, they seem to have, from the records, like carvings in caves and everything, and paintings on walls, you find that coincidentally they also have similar images of God in, I think, South America.
Right.
From their early people. There was an episode we talked about aliens, and you don't believe in aliens?
Still don't.
Here's another proof for you that maybe, the first generation of quote-unquote gods or residents on Earth might be of the same, descendants. They have that image. Because how do you explain that in the continent of Asia and then in the continent of South America, thousands of years ago, two different cavemen painting on their caves and happen to have the similar image,
Right.
So snake is not like a bad symbol in Chinese culture.
Is there any symbolism when it comes to the Chinese culture, specifically with snakes? Is it because they believe it's not harmful, or?
Well, I think we just never see it as something that you would label as good or evil. It's just what it is, And I think when it comes to the Chinese New Year of the snake, we mean a specific snake, not like a usual snake. We don't celebrate like all snakes.
All snakes. Okay,
it's
that's
it's like a spiritual snake, and it represents good fortune. Nobody hates that.
That's
good fortune, wealth, and agile. Being healthy in your body. Wow. And have good joints and all that, I guess, if you want to elaborate. But it means, because a snake is very fast and agile, so it means like you have good health, and you're sportsy. I don't know. In general, I mean, it's not as favored as last year, which was the year of the dragon. People think they're majestic. Or the year of the rabbit before that, cute and fluffy. But snakes has its own meaning in the Chinese culture. We have 12 animals in the Chinese zodiac, and every 12 years it revolves, it turns around, recycles. So now this year is the year of the snake.
That's interesting. So if you're in China, how do people really celebrate the Chinese New Year? Because I know it's very colorful.
Yeah, we have... it doesn't always have to do with the animal in question.
Okay.
So they're not like snake performers on the streets across China. No, not like that.
Right.
Because we're going to find a dragon then, right?
Yeah.
Because in China, we celebrate with good food. We reunite with our family.
Right.
And then a lot of, firecrackers, getting along with our family, reuniting, It can be a very, for me, it can be a very healing process. So you can get away from the tiredness of the year.
So how many days is it? Because for the usual, it's like a day. But is it more than 5 days in the Chinese
It's
culture?
more than 5 days. At least the public holiday, I think it's 7 days.
Okay.
And each of the day we do different specific activities.
Okay.
For example, on the eve,
Yeah.
which is December 31st in the Chinese lunar calendar, we stay up late, watch the Spring Festival Gala.
Nice.
And then if you're young enough, you stay through the midnight, right?
Yeah.
And then you try to welcome the new day with a fresh mind in the presence of your family. Yeah. And on January the 1st, we visit our relatives. January the 2nd, usually that's what's interesting. January 2nd is when usually a newlywed bride would go back to her mother's family to reconnect with her mother's family. Because January 1st, she spends it with her husband's family, right? Yeah. The 2nd, she would go back to her own family. And then on January the 5th, it's the day of the money god, which would be very important for Chinese people.
Interesting, I'm sure.
That's when the business owners, they would burn the very tall incense.
Yeah.
There's some incense that can be as tall as 2 meters, even higher. You burn it in front of your shops to welcome good fortune, good business in the coming year.
Wow, that is so interesting. I like the fact that, every day has its own thing.
Yes, you have to do it because if you skip a day, you're being disrespectful to, whether it's a god or it's a family tradition that's designated to that day.
Anything forbidden to do during this time?
Don't curse, don't do bad things, basically. And I think that's the same with you don't want to offend your God or your faith on the first day of the new year. And specifically, at least from my part of China, our tradition is we would eat a lot of dumplings.
Oh, wow. Yes.
And they would put a peanut. They used to put a coin, but then it's a bit dangerous, right?
Okay.
Nowadays, they replace the coin, the lucky coin, with a peanut that they put only in one of the dumplings. And if you get the dumpling that has the peanut in it, you're the lucky one this year.
Actually, of course, we've seen controversies online about, the difference between Chinese New Year and the Lunar New Year. What do you think is the difference, really?
Well, for me personally, I don't see what the fuss is about. Every year during Chinese New Year, you see all this kind of controversy online, people arguing about whether to call it this or that. For me, it doesn't really matter because the two things are two different things, because the Chinese New Year is based on the Chinese lunar calendar, when January 1st starts on the second new moon after the winter solstice, when the term Lunar New Year is different in each and different culture. And I think in the Islamic calendar you have your own lunar calendar. So if I call today January 2nd, the lunar calendar is January 2nd, then it would be incorrect, because people from your culture would wonder, we're not having New Year, then because I don't want to represent other cultures. So I think it's just safe to call it Chinese New Year, for me at least. But I think for the United Nations, they're calling it the Chinese Lunar New Year, which I think which is balanced and a more official way to call it. But for short, we just call it Chinese New Year, or CNY. This year happens to be the first year that the United Nations has designated the Chinese New Year as intangible human cultural heritage. Yeah.
Which is a big milestone, of course, in itself.
I think it's very worth celebrating.
100%. I've seen the videos of the Spring Festival.
How do you like it?
Wow, it's Fast, very colorful. Everything is very well coordinated.
Oh, they practice so many times.
Wow, like top notch for sure. I really enjoyed
the kung
watching.
fu like blows people's mind, you know.
Yeah, do you know
now with technology.
Do you know how to do kung fu?
Oh, that's I don't know.
Do you want?
I missed the chance to learn.
Really?
They don't accept women at Shaolin.
Oh.
They are monks like men.
It's only men.
I think so.
Yeah, damn, I was here.
Unless I disguise.
I could give it a shot, you know. Because I said I'm going to do boxing at some point.
Well, I guess if you pay enough, they would always accept. There's always a leeway.
Yeah. But let's finally just talk about the New Year resolutions. Of course, if you follow the usual calendar, the Gregorian calendar, we've already done that. But now for you, the Chinese New Year, what are your resolutions and hopes for this year?
Well, it's interesting that every year the Chinese New Year falls between the end of January and the beginning of February, which is very close to the actual January 1st, New Year. So I do this resolution twice in January. I think for me in 2025, first of all, health is very important. So I wished for good health for myself and for my family and friends. And then as news workers, after, a very eventful, let's say, 2024. I just want to see less chaos and conflict and tragedy in the world. Because what are festivals if they're not chances for us to wish for the best for everyone in the world, not just in your culture, right? That's the good side and generosity of human nature. And I just hope, this year we can all have a very smooth and peaceful year for ourselves, and then we can do better.
For sure. For sure. I totally agree with you. But thank you for making time.
Thank you very much for having me.
You should be coming around a bit more often, okay?
I will. And finally, I'd like to wish everyone listening a happy Chinese New Year. 新年快乐.
Yeah, that what she said, yeah.